moral side of the news, our weekly discussion of today's top stories from a moral, ethical, and religious point of view. I'm Sean Kalin with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and I'm joined today, as always, by a distinguished panel of local religious leaders. Reverend Dr. George Wasson, Faith Point Church, Reverend Jason Crosby, Chaplain Center College, Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church, and Rabbi Emerita Gelia R. Rooks, the Temple. It's back to school week. We begin with the controversy surrounding Kentucky Senate Bill 181, passed into law that changes the way students are allowed to communicate with teachers, administrators, and coaches.
The days of public school teachers, coaches, and volunteers in Kentucky texting students for school-related matters are coming to an end. And in JCPS, they're already done.
And I understand we want to protect them. I'm just not sure that's the way to do it. I'm not sure we've done it the best way.
Judy Scott Berger teaches English and journalism at PRP High, telling me a new state law creates challenges.
I do normally share my phone number with my journalism students because they will send me a picture, or they'll send me a question, or they'll ask me while they're out interviewing somebody, can I do this, or should I do that, or is this picture good, or that kind of thing.
In an effort to prevent child sexual abuse, Kentucky lawmakers passed a bill requiring local school boards make all electronic communication between staff and students traceable. At a JCPS board meeting, members approved a list of acceptable options, including district email and other traceable apps like Google Workspace for Education. Republican State Senator Max Wise asked if he's heard complaints about the new law.
I'm not for sure if it's complaints as much as it is maybe misinformation and trying to understand what the law is. The intent of Senate Bill 181 is about child protection. It's about student safety.
Wise said it's about getting parents more involved, though he opened the door for possible revisions down the line.
That's why we could come back and we could easily do any type of cleanup that could be there, but that's also working with our educational groups across Kentucky.
And I'm happy that they want to revise the bill, but let's start getting the bill right the first time.
George Nichols Jr. is a JCPS teacher and wrestling coach at Seneca High.
99.9% of the educators are not the problem. And I don't know that this bill is going to do enough to stop the criminals and to stop the people that are doing harm to our kids.
He fears this law could actually do more harm to students than good.
I've had instances where students, because of their home situation, sometimes don't have super reliable adults in their life.
Okay, panel, so we come out to you. Your thoughts on the new school year and this law that's gone into effect, the Senate Bill 181.
Okay, no dead air allowed.
Yeah.
I agree with what was said on the clip. I mean, of course, we all want to protect our children, our school kids, and I'm just not sure that this is the way. I don't know enough about technology, but surely there is some way, some platform that will allow the students, without giving their phone number, to communicate with the teachers without giving their phone number, almost like if the school itself set up a WhatsApp group, but only the administration could have the access to the numbers. I don't know. It's just very hard for me to believe that this can't be done in a very simple technological way. But the gentleman who said, you know, we're trying to protect the kids, but it's such a tiny percentage, and this may not be the way. Actually, I really liked what the woman said about how accessible she is to her students. I mean, to me, that's wonderful. I don't want to stop teachers from, you know, being there for their kids and the kids who you know, maybe don't have good role models at home, or, you know, reliable adults to depend on. So, yeah, I have my questions as to how hard this should be to make happen.
I think the intent is to prevent private communication between the student and the teacher, and you know, it's not that I don't think that this law will solve all problems, and I hope that no one thinks that that's what's actually going to happen, but rather, maybe as to what I hear about it is that it sounds to me that they're passing in that it's experimental. They may tweak with it some later on, but I think a safety practice, even before this was looked at, was actually seeking or to refrain from much private communication between teacher and student. You know, that others need to be involved, such as parents or another adult, you know, in that communication, even when it's professional, that it's in a sense done that way to protect the student and to protect the teacher.
Yeah, we have already encountered some of the disruptions in our home that has been created by the implementation of this new law and JCPS trying to shift the ways in which teachers and others communicate with students. My son is a JCPS freshman. My daughter is in 7th grade in a JCPS school, but they have been involved already before school began with athletics. And athletic coaches have already been trying to operate in accordance with this new legislation and then JCPS policy. And it has been a minor challenge thus far for our family and for our children. I think that the intent is wise and noble. But I also am already beginning to see some of the downsides to this particular means of communication. I understand the need for traceable communication between a teacher and a student. Makes good sense. I also understand that when a teacher coach needs to communicate something efficiently and effectively to my son or to a team, without a doubt, a text message is the best, most efficient, reliable way to go. Maybe we will get to a point over the course of this school year where there's more familiarity with the platform that JCPS is using. That is not the case right now. And while it hasn't dramatically impacted us, I see some of the weaknesses that are present there from a parental point of view, because I want my child's coach to be able to quickly inform my child about a change of venue, about a practice cancellation. I want my my child's coach to be able to tell my freshman, hey, good practice today. That's important to me in my household. One other point, and then I'll pass the baton. I was speaking with a JCPS teacher last night, and we were talking about something that was touched upon in the clip that ran before our comments, and that was, what about the problems, the good that will be undone by the implementation of this new communication system? So many students, when they are in crisis, the first thing they do is they pick up and they will text a teacher or a trusted administrator. And then that trusted administrator can get that student quick and immediate help. The proof will be in the pudding. We'll see how it plays out. But one concern we have is if you have a student that is worried about their safety, and they know that a teacher's a phone call away, and the teacher gets a text from a student. Well, that teacher now knows that if they reply, that is in violation of this law. And it is definitely clear to educators that I've spoken to in JCPS that we are not going to respond via text. So I think it's going to take a little bit more time. I think there's a lot to iron out. There are some downsides. I'm glad that revisions can be made in the future. I understand the intent and motive, but you know, as one of the educators said, let's get it right the first time. I understand the need to score perhaps some political victories in the General Assembly, but this is certainly one that if we could have waited just a little bit longer, maybe implemented, phased this in some capacity, I think that would have been helpful. Sorry to go on so long.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that we have is that technology is changing so fast, and you know, so I live on the other side of the river, so this particular law doesn't necessarily impact me, but we do see in our school system, for instance, we're moving to trying to be a phones-free campus, and Indiana passed a law that kids aren't supposed to be using their phones and things during school. And so the schools are having to adapt and to try to find other platforms. You know, I think the challenge is that we find a platform, and a platform seems to work, and then if it has a social media component, it means that it can be played with. You know, my kids like to play the game Roadblocks, and you know, I learned that, well, you got to be careful who you accept as friends and such on Roadblocks, because somebody who you don't want to get in there can get in there. And so we have inroads into technology that some of them we're just discovering as the platforms are rolled out. We have an athletic app that my daughter uses called Slack that gives the coaches the opportunity to share news and chats and pictures and calendars and all those kinds of things, that you get permission from the coach to be on the platform. So while it doesn't allow as much individual, you know, between a coach and a particular student, it actually puts the communication out there for lots of people to see. And so I just think there's some inherent challenges where if an adult can text a child or a child can text an adult, we'd like to be able to say we trust everybody completely, but somebody has done this so that they have to find these new ways to screen the technologies. And if we have to save kids and help kids and prevent abuse, man, that's just a tough thing that we have to do, right?
But the app to which you were referring, I believe, allows the adult, the coach in your case, to know the phone number of the kid who signed up for it, to see the pictures and the, you know, what's happening and everything. And that's what they're trying to avoid. And it's a sad statement of the current affairs of our world, but it's a reality, and we do want to protect the kids. I just, you know, I think we're all in agreement that there's still work to be done in finishing this off.
I have an example just like Jason's. My daughter is a senior and a golfer, and her imagine a golf coach trying to coach the kids on a golf course while they're competing when the team of 5 is spread out over 3 or 4 holes. There's no easy way to communicate. There's no easy way to say, hey, they just called the match because, or the tournament because of a lightning strike. Take shelter.
Right.
So we're dealing with the same issues as a golf team with 5 to 10 players competing at a time, and a golf coach, you can't readily, she's not on the sideline, you know, she's spread out over the course. So it is a challenge that it is not everyone's trying to navigate through.
Yeah, I know one unique challenge that was brought to my attention last night, football teams. A number of teams in JCPS and beyond apparently use an app called Huddle, which is then integrated and accessible for college coaches that might be recruiting. You can upload videos, you can communicate with the team. JCPS has gone to one platform for all these communications that doesn't have these capacities and capabilities that are so helpful for a football coach, and then for their student athletes perhaps to get recognized by a recruiter. Perhaps that can be ironed out, but right now it's a little bit of a mess.
Yeah. And you want that mentorship between a coach and a student,
and one of the teachers.
Right, and one of the first things when we entered high school was the parents take a step back and let the students start becoming an adult and communicating, and so all that is disrupted now too. Anyway, all right, so second topic on back to school, and I apologize to George, it's another Kentucky topic, but I think it's in your wheelhouse. You'll be something you're interested in. Kentucky Senate Bill 19 that was introduced this year and vetoed by the governor and then overridden and passed into law, and that impacts schools when it comes to the ability that they set aside an hour of school time each week for moral education. Let's take a look at that story.
It just feels like there's a lot of tension here in this bill.
Members of the Oldham County School Board got deep into discussing a new law that could impact their students.
The law in question is Senate Bill 19, which was passed by the General Assembly and sent to Governor Andy Beshear's desk. The governor then vetoed the bill, but legislators took a vote and successfully overturned that veto, making this bill law.
SB 19 allows public school boards to partner with organizations, even religious ones, to offer moral instruction to students if parents consent. This means students can be excused from school from up to 1 hour a week to attend a program off campus. It's a law with opposition.
That wall between church and state. And I think we need to realize that was put into place for a very important reason. And yes, I strongly believe, and so does our group, that we have to keep this separation.
But one Oldham County mother says she's all in.
We're Christian and we really like the idea of having an additional enrichment opportunity. I know that they have said that it would be during non-instructional hours, which I think is awesome. You know, that way he's not missing anything. And so I just felt like this was a really great opportunity that's kind of being put into a bad light because of the criticism.
The group Kentucky Citizens for Democracy says the religious program the school is considering a partnership with, LifeWise Academy, is troublesome.
There have been problems with the data they have submitted. There have been problems with kids being bullied. And so us knowing that as a group, we're coming to Oldham County to say, please stop, really do a deep dive into this.
And that's what the board is doing, asking for guidance. Board Chair Carly Clem denied our request for an interview, but did say this.
We can put in that request to the AG's office on, how exactly do we need to comply with this law, because we do need to follow the law.
With a lot to consider, religious teaching during school time could soon come to Oldham County kids.
Okay, so your thoughts on Senate Bill 19? Gelia, we'll start with you.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about this. The separation between church and state, religion and politics, in my opinion, is one of the bedrocks of a true democracy. I see so many problems with this. I'll just mention a few. As the only non-Christian on the panel today, if you have a large percentage of your kids going off to do a program that I'm not going to let my kid go do, then they become ostracized. I mean, it's othering to different people. There's just so much potential for this to go wrong, but that's not really even the point. The point is, if you want your child to have moral education, do it at home, do it at church. There's all kinds of after-school programs, but don't interfere with and don't put religion into the public school system. I don't know how much clearer I can say that.
There were some complexities to the bill. I think one is some time of silence before the day. I actually like that. I think of the interfaith and ecumenical practices and interreligious practices that people can do. Even in a public secular setting, a time of silence works because words aren't spoken. It's basically, as humans, we can be silent together. That silence can be sacred, even if an individual person doesn't name it as sacred. And I think that actually silence can also be part of the learning day. And so there was some critique about the bill saying that it's not instructional, but I think learning can happen even when instruction's not happening and silence happens. That's part. The other part with the allowance for sort of religious or moral instruction outside the campus during the day, I have more questions about, in that the group proposing, or the group that the third-party group that would come in, are sort of making themselves out to be sort of a generic religious program, and I really don't believe that there is such a thing. And so I think it's going to be more specialized than that. That this group has a creed, which is fine, and I applaud the beliefs and all of that, but I don't think it's fit for a whole community of people with various kinds of beliefs. And so, therefore, I don't think it's fitting. On the other hand, it's not the most terrible thing. The children are not forced to go, but there is this sense of, popularity that would have them go. I mean, parents can always refuse for their children to attend, and so those are the kind of thoughts that I bring to it. So I have some reservations about the second part of the bill that I know of in that bill.
Yes, there are some questions that come to my mind, but certainly, like Galia, perhaps for some different historical and personal reasons, maintaining separation of church and state is an important part of my faith practice as a Baptist. A group that left England and other parts of Europe, coming to the United States due to religious persecution, and advocated early in our nation's forming and before the formation of this country for separation of church and state. It's certainly something that is important and near and dear to me for moral and spiritual reasons. And this particular set of facts, as I understand them, is not as egregious in many respects as some other, what I would consider to be blatant violations of that separation that we have discussed on this panel in previous years and episodes. However, as Galia mentioned, there are ample opportunities for moral enrichment in education in other spheres of life beyond the public school setting. I think even though there are gray areas here, if we do value other people's religious expression, if we value the fact that others that are non-Christian deserve the opportunity to function and operate in public space in the same way that those in the majority, as I believe is the case in this particular district, Oldham County, this particular school, the kindest and I think most responsible course of action is to not open the door to this gray area. And as John said, when you have a third-party specific group coming in that is leading this charge, that makes me nervous. If you had an opportunity for moral enrichment where children had the opportunity to encounter enrichment or instruction from a rabbi, from an imam, from a Buddhist leader or priest, I think that could be a different set of facts that might make me reconsider kind of where I am at the moment. But when you have one particular group that's a third party that is entering into this relationship, coming from a particular background, using public school space, time, that is troublesome to me.
So again, not being from Kentucky, I would agree with you, though, Father John, about the moment of silence. I think that is absolutely appropriate. I think giving kids, they've been running and going on school buses and getting on the grounds, and giving that time to just say, okay, everybody take a breath. Let's just be quiet. Let's center ourselves. For those, and they don't have to say it, but for those of a faith perspective, they can use that time as they see fit. For everybody else, it's just a time to probably chill out and calm down a little bit. So I don't have any problem with that. I will tell you, as a parent who, if there was an opportunity for, if it's labeled as moral instruction, I'm going to be doing a whole lot of homework. I'm going to be spending a whole lot of time at the school. I do understand from reading the story that it's not supposed to occur on school grounds. It requires parental permission, that there are some rubrics in there that will help maybe guide that a little bit. But again, as an involved parent, I would be super involved, because the basic morality of my children needs to come from my home and from my faith tradition, because I might disagree adamantly with the morality of even a teacher or somebody who's brought in as a third party. So I think there's just a lot of cause for here to say, let's just check it out. Let's see what's going on. because there are things that I don't want my kids exposed to, especially early in life.
Right.
I send my kids to school because I want them to do school. I want them to do math and history and English and literature and those kinds of things. That's what I want to happen at school. If this is an offering, I have lots of questions.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to, I used a term that is familiar in my circles, but that maybe other people don't use, the term of othering. Is that something that you talk about? Is seeing someone else as other, as different. And I mean, we're all different, and but othering can be, seeing someone as an other can be isolating and can lead or stem from some strong prejudices, and it's just, I don't want my kid leaving school grounds during school time to get somewhere, even if it was a group that we all agreed on, which that would be a little miracle right there, huh? but even if it was a group that we all agreed on and it had a set curriculum that we all were open to, if it were an interfaith exposure like what you were saying that had a Muslim imam and a Jewish rabbi and a Catholic priest and a Buddhist monk, and and it was focusing on the core values of not othering, of loving your neighbor as yourself, and of treating everyone as a child of God, and respect and things like that. I don't think it belongs in school. And I also wanted to comment, about the moment of silence, because I didn't speak to that before. I'm not sure how you make that work. With little kids, I mean, what, you're breaking the law, go to the principal's office, when a 7-year-old, whatever, and then the teenagers who sneeze, and then everybody giggles, or then they pretend to sneeze and there's a fight. I'm just saying, if you believe that that's a good thing for your child, you should suggest it while the teacher is taking attendance. Close your eyes, do some deep breathing, pray, whatever. That can be something the parent suggests, not the school.
We'll have to end it right there. Thank you for a great back-to-school episode of Moral Side of the News. Thanks to our panel today, Reverend Dr. George Wasson, Faith Point Church, Reverend Jason Crosby, Chaplain Center College, Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church, and Rabbi Emerita Gelia R. Rooks with the Temple. Thanks for watching and listening to Moral Side of the News. We'll have an all-new conversation next week. Until then, have a great week.